the first phase is giving up your need to be right, right? So that you have the proper mindset to making the best decision for us. Like I've shared before, how I was digging my heels into on one another financial decision I had to make. I was digging my heels into what I thought was the right thing to do. You said your piece, and then you concluded by saying, "Honey, I know you'll make the best decision for us." I know that was a big mind shift for me because I've always remembered that because I'm like, ooh, I felt the weight that this whether I'm right or wrong or whatever my opinion is, right? However we move forward, if it's jointly agreeable or I'm forcing it, it's going to affect the both of us. What is the best decision for us? Not just to want to keep my ego intact and want to be right, and then we move forward just because I needed to be right. And so,
And then I have resentment.
yeah, and so I think,
And then it seeps out other ways.
yeah, when you're able to just lay down your ego, you'll see things a little more clearly. And then, like we said before, sometimes it's, I'm right. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes we just come up with a better decision that's better than either one of ours was individually. Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hey, Tandem family, welcome back to this week's episode.
Hi, guys.
And today we got a doozy. It's all about dealing with life transitions, honey. You ready to talk about this?
Oh, I don't know.
So whether it's like when I left my corporate job to do the business full time, or currently we're in the process of moving from, growing up and living in California almost all our lives to the East Coast. And then, of course, when we got married, moving into a new place, you moving into a new place. We don't have kids, but having kids and even having kids and having them move out. I mean, all these major life transitions can either bring out the best in us or the worst in us.
So there's no middle in between?
Well, yes. Well, yeah, I'm sure there's an in between, right? So we want to talk about these life transitions and how to be agreeable during these challenging times, because basically when things get kind of heated at home, right? It's because just disagreements. We're just disagreeing on, where do we move or do we move? Like back in, when I was leaving corporate, should I leave? And if so, when? Is this the right time? Do we have enough money in the bank? I mean, there's all these conversations that can create, some interesting dinner type talk.
Yeah, because I think even when you plan them out as well as you can, there's no guarantee things are going to work out.
Yeah. So there's always a layer of stress behind us, right? So like for me, I was fun. As you know, I never thought of myself as having a business anyway. And my risk tolerance is pretty low in general. And so leaving, having 25 years in a Fortune 500 company and being a high performer there, salaries and bonuses were great. Healthcare, all the benefits and all that, and award trips and all that. So there's a lot of benefits, and it was very safe, right? And that was one of the reasons why I went to the pharmaceutical industry, was that very fact. It was safe. Growing up in the Bay Area, up in San Jose, there's a lot of tech companies, right? Silicon Valley. So it's home of the tech industry. And so a lot of my friends were going in the tech industry, but I just wanted to stay away because I just saw it was too volatile. Unless you're one of the big major players, you're usually in some kind of a startup company or even a mid-level company that potentially is going to get bought out. And when that happens, usually people are losing their jobs.
And it's still like that today.
Yeah, it's still like that. I mean, so I didn't want to deal with that roller coaster ride. And so I thought, the pharmaceutical industry is tried and true. People are always going to need drugs, fortunately or unfortunately. And so I thought it was just a very steady industry to be in. Of course, the pay was really good and all the benefits were really great. So, it was nice. It was safe. I was good.
And you were there, 25 years?
Yeah. Well, between Coca-Cola and the pharmaceutical industry, it was about 25 years by the time I left. And so, transitioning to go on your own is, there's a lot of question marks and, what if this doesn't work out or whatever.
Well, I think it could be challenging because you are so seasoned and you're so good at what you're doing.
Yeah. So
and you're like, do I really want to leave this?
Yeah. Going from knowing what you're doing and feeling, you
successful.
And to starting all over, basically, that can be scary. And of course, even while you're in business, if there's a major pivot, I mean, shoot, like it wasn't that long ago, 2020, right? COVID, a lot of businesses had to make some kind of major transition. And so that's challenging, right? Challenging not for you as the business owner, but then at home, because it affects home. And so how do you how do you deal with that stuff, right? So it doesn't break you, because we see marriages can fall apart because of one of these type of transitions, right? And so let's talk about that. So there's, what are some of the common challenges that that happen when you are going through a transition? And well, one I just said, security, right? And there's also just the major differences of opinion. So especially if one's a more risk taker versus the other. So the risk taker is always going to be having a very optimistic and let's go. And then the less risk tolerant is going to be, well, really worried about security.
We see that a lot with our entrepreneur clients
Yeah.
in business.
Especially, yeah. So when you're married and um when you're married and even when you're working together, right? Usually one of the spouses is the more the risk taker than the other one. And so how do you move together well instead of like letting it drive apart? I mean, we just had a discovery call yesterday with a with one, and it was like the one spouse was working full time in the business, wanted the spouse to who was working a full time job in a nice, sounds like kind of like me, a nice corporate position, bringing steady income and benefits. She does want to come in full time. She's working part time right now in the business, but she does want to come in full time, but when?
Mhm.
Right? Because, hey, once we leave the corporate environment, the corporate job, then that security goes away and then it's all on us. Right. And so that
I can
create,
understand that,
creates some
and
stress.
that's got pluses and it's got challenges because the pluses, if you're leaving everything, it's like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta get out here and be serious about, if we don't have an income coming in from somewhere else from a steady paycheck, we gotta be really serious about your business."
So I think as we're talking, I think it all comes down to security issue, right? When one, the risk taker is doesn't care as much about that and just let's go. And then the other spouse is worried about security, however that looks. And so how do you manage that? And so for one, as we're talking about going into the solution mode, I think one had to be we had to start thinking, and this has come just through experience, but when you make your vows, I mean they say, two becomes one. Two separate people. When you can become married, you join in the union of one. And so you really do have to start thinking as one, not just my opinion versus your opinion, but one. And I remember the other thing. So these are two things you got to remember as you're listening. Two becomes one. You're one, because if one is hurting, one is unsure, you're both gonna be hurting, and you both are going to get affected. So you don't want to just override your spouse's, maybe say, lack of risk tolerance or whatever, and just say we're going and just drag them along, because ultimately that's going to create resent and just a lot of arguments
Mhm.
versus,
No peace in the
yeah,
home.
versus, okay, how do we make a better decision as one? So
Mhm.
basically unity, right? We
And
want to move in unity.
I think too, a lot of times the driver, they've gotta get this done, like, right away, we gotta do it. It's a emergency, it's a fire, lit a fire. But I think sometimes if you slow down a little bit and let the other spouse catch up, I think you can make better decisions a lot of times
Absolutely.
because you're not so, "Oh my gosh, we gotta just do it right now," and you jump on it. And, you've had a little bit time to think about it. And you know what? When you come together, you can have better solutions and ideas. I know with you, you don't push me on ideas. I mean, when you wanted to leave corporate, I was totally fine with that. But with other things in life, you have not pushed me. You let me state how you feel, and then you let me come to my own conclusion.
Yeah, I learned that early on.
Yeah.
I could tell you were not the kind of person that want to be pushed. I had to
You
plant the
start
seed,
forcing something on me, I'll automatically, I don't care what it is, go the other
plant the
direction.
seed. Even when I said I love you, I had to plant the
Yes.
seed. Wasn't expecting her to say it in return right away, which she didn't.
Surprise, surprise.
So anyways, yeah, so two becomes one, make unified decisions, and then take the plank out of your own eye. For those of you that read the Bible, there's a passage, how can you see the speck in somebody else's eye if you have a plank in your own? Which means look at yourself first, look in the mirror. When, you can criticize or complain about your spouse and lack of faith or lack of risk or whatever, but let's look at our own situation first before we just start to criticize the other person. First thing to do is, I think we've become really good at this, is just have a vision. Like right now, when we're moving to North Carolina, and it really was kind of almost by accident that we stumbled upon Lake Norman. Well,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe not accident. We had that client as a NASCAR driver, went out for the race in Charlotte, back in 2021.
To watch them race?
Yeah, his parents rented an Airbnb right on Lake Norman, right outside of Charlotte. Stayed with them. Just got That's how we got introduced to Lake Norman. It was just beautiful,
And
right?
I've always loved the water and wanted to live on it.
And we had talked about one day wouldn't it be nice to live on the water. And we also talked about would we rather live on the beach or live on the lake? And I think
Mhm.
we both said lake, right? So, anyways, it was just talk, right, over the years. And then all of a sudden we come across Lake Norman, and I'm like, wow, this is really nice. And then I remember kayaking on the lake, and I'm just looking around going, I could see myself here. And then, of course,
I was kinda surprised you said that
why?
because you told me when we first got married you didn't wanna move a lot.
We keep having
And
this
so
conversation. I never said I didn't want to move,
you just because you
right?
had moved so much as a child.
That wasn't an absolute statement. I didn't say I did not want to move. I said I don't want to move around a lot.
And
So,
so we've been in
and I
the
had
same house for 20
25
years.
years.
I've been 20, you're 25.
Yeah, it's 25 years. So true to form. I have not moved around a lot.
So you
However,
can see why you guys have kinda caught me off a little bit because 'cause you've
but
been in the house
still,
for 25 years,
again,
same one.
you're too black and white. I didn't say I never want to move. I was always
You
open to
weren't thrilled
moving, but
about
it
it.
had to. No, I wasn't thrilled about moving around a lot. We moved around a lot as a kid because we are moving around a lot, and there was never any like. Well, there's a lot of reasons, more financial reasons. Anyways, all to say is I don't want to move just to move.
Oh, but I don't wanna move just to move either.
Well, that's what it kind of felt like when I was a kid. We're just moving,
No,
like
when you're a kid, yeah, I could see that.
so.
Because you
Anyways,
moved like
now,
15 times, what, in
yeah,
10 years?
hence why you don't still don't get this. I
I
don't know.
get it. I just forget about it because I had a different childhood, so
So,
we lived in the same
anyways,
house
all that to
growing
say,
up.
banter aside, came across Lake Norman and it was like, oh, this is really nice. Of course, went on Zillow and looked at the price of homes on the lake and said, oh, compared to Southern California prices, this is very affordable.
Compared to Pasadena, we're like,
And
"Wow."
so I was like, oh, we can actually afford, a nice lakefront place. And anyways, so we had talked about it and over, since 2021 till today, I think once a year we're out there for one reason or another. We're out there for at least a weekend or so on our book tours. We stopped in Charlotte
Yeah,
and
you
rented an
surprised me.
Airbnb on the lake. And then last March, we decided to spend the month of March on the lake to see, hey, let's take a little bit more time and get to know the area and see, hey, is this something we could do? And then now, after that month, we're just like, okay, let's give it a year. Let's go
Mhm,
rent a place for a year. And if by the end of the year, if we still feel like this is a place, then yeah, let's buy.
mhm.
Right. Then we'll start buying. We'll buy. So, anyways, all to say is, it started with essentially the vision, talking about long term, where would we like to live? And even though we weren't really actively looking for a place, we found a place,
Mhm.
right, that kind of fit what we thought. So, anyways, all to say is the vision really helped, I think, be able to make a unified decision of at least saying, yes, this is a potential.
Yeah, because and I really like that we did small steps along the way.
Hmm.
It was nice going for a whole month and staying there and see how we like it.
Yeah. And so, um, that really helps. So when you don't have kind of a unified vision of what you want, then what happens is a lot of times opportunity comes up and one spouse wants to go one way and the other one wants to stay where they are or go even a separate direction.
Mm.
And then we have some stress. We have to, in cases like that, and we've had a number of situations, and I guess this falls into a transition topic too, where, we had to we're selling a property and we had to make during the process of the sale we had to make a financial decision, of
Mhm.
course, and we got stuck on you know couple details, and so it really became kind of a heated discussion, right? It even kind of floated into our evening walk, which has never happened, unfortunately never happened since. So anyways, we were not in unity in that, but then remember when I came home and I looked and I processed what we're arguing about, and I said, hey, we're really unified in a lot of the decisions about this sale, but there was a couple small details that we weren't agreeing on. And so came to you and said, hey, we agree on more than we disagree. And of course you didn't think we did.
No, you said, "Honey, do you know we agree on more than we disagree?" And I said, "No."
So I let you know. I said, I laid it out. Here's where we agree. Yes, yes. And then, okay, let's take care of the small detail. And then that wasn't an issue. So, going back to the fact that we're actually more agreeable than not, start with the point of agreement, right? That's kind of what helps you bring back to make a unified decision is remind each other that, hey, we agree here. This is a major point of the issue we actually agree upon. Now let's just move forward with this little thing.
Yeah, because I wasn't looking at it from that point of view. I was just like, "Oh, I just wanna dig my heels in." But you were right. There was more that we agreed on than we disagreed on.
Yeah.
And once you brought that to my attention and I was able to sit with it for a few minutes and think about it and process, I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. We got the big thing taken care of. It's just these small things that we got stuck on."
Yeah, and then, getting back to making unified decision or us decisions, right? I think start using the terminology of what's the best decision for us, as opposed to here's what I think or here's what you think, whatever. And I think that's where we get into conflict, when we get into disagreements, because we're coming with opinions, and I guess we want to be right, right? I mean, I know for me, when I dig my heels in, because I need to be right. Probably a lot from my perfectionism growing up. And so I have had to learn to give up my need to be right so that
Mhm.
we can make the best decision for us.
Well, and I think too with me, sometimes the fear comes up. Like today, we're trying to get our house ready. It wasn't planned, but the HOA is having a plumber come in because we have units on top of each other, our plumbing. So they're going to do all three of the stacks at the same time. And they let me know the day before, and I already had an appointment made with to get my microwave put in. So my house is in disarray. And it's like, I don't know about this construction, but I was better, I was all right. At the end of the day, I just thought I'll just clean up this mess and I'm feeling better now. Well, because if it affects me and part of the move and all this, it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Because if I'm upset in this
Mhm.
transition.
So, yeah, I'm not sure where to go back to this because I was talking about give up your need to be right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were in transition.
Well, no, we are talking about transitions. Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of giving it, be able to make us decisions. The first phase is giving up your need to be right, right? So that you have the proper mindset to making the best decision for us. Like I've shared before, how I was digging my heels into on one another financial decision I had to make. I was digging my heels into what I thought was the right thing to do. You said your piece, and then you concluded by saying, "Honey, I know you'll make the best decision for us." And I know that was a big mind shift for me because I've always remembered that because I'm like, ooh, I felt the weight that yeah, this whether I'm right or wrong or whatever my opinion is, right? However we move forward, if it's jointly agreeable or I'm forcing it, it's going to affect the both of us, right? So I had to really weigh that decision. Is yeah, what is the best decision for us? Not just to want to keep my ego intact and want to be right, and then we move forward just because I needed to be right. And so
And then I have resentment.
yeah, and so I think
And then it seeps out other ways.
yeah, when you're able to just lay down your ego, you'll see things a little bit more clearly. And then, like we said before, sometimes it's, I'm right, sometimes you're right. Sometimes we just come up with a better decision that's better than either one of ours was individually, right? But by keeping the conversation open, I think allows us to make really great decisions. Just even like this move, right?
'Cause I think something this big as the move, we have to both buy in, and we have to come up with a plan that works for both of us.
Yeah.
I think it's just too stressful to, if we're not on the same page.
Yeah. And, for us, moving in God's timing, not yours. And I think sometimes we're trying to force things too much and we're not patient enough to kind of move at the right timing, not just because I want to do it and because I'm impatient, because the risk taker is usually very impatient and just wants to go. And then you've got the less risk taker, and they want to slow it down or even stop because of fear. But how do we allow ourselves to kind of move at the right pace? And so I know when I was transitioning from corporate to the business, there's a couple times, I did ask for sign the first time, and we
Prayed.
got one clearly. It wasn't time to leave. Second, 2 years later, when I was like really getting fed up with what was going on at work, I said, okay, I think it's time to leave. And I wasn't doing it just out of frustration, but I thought realistically it was time to leave.
Mhm.
Prayed again and just didn't really get any signs of any time that we can see. And so sometimes no answer is an answer,
Mhm.
and that we just have to just put our best foot forward. Right. And so, anyways, however, whether you believe in prayer or not, still, I think it's still good to just meditate. Don't be in such a rush because what we've found too is when we slow it down a little bit, and that's something I've learned from you, right? If we slow it down a little bit, a lot of times the direction, the what to do, when to do it becomes a little bit clearer. Sometimes even like a business deal where somebody wants to speed you into making a decision. Like one time we were being pitched a big investment And so, sometimes they get very high pressure sales technique. And so I know you're gonna want to put the brakes on when someone like that is going on.
Mhm.
I sometimes could get caught up in hype in the past, and then now I've learned to, yeah, let's slow this thing down a little bit. And why are you pressing us? And in that waiting period, all of a sudden these new truths come out that weren't revealed in the beginning. Sometimes a lot of these people, they're intentionally want to speed you up to make a decision because they don't want you to find out the real truth.
Yeah. I've learned that one the hard way.
And so, slowing it down actually is very beneficial because all of a sudden these new issues will pop up that weren't there initially. And then you'll say, oh, this is not the right deal.
You see that with cars. People buy a car. I'm like, "No, this is the last one, and this is the best price you're ever gonna get," and yada yada. And people just buy it. I'm like, you know how many of those same cars? There's a lot of them out there. There's not just one of a kind. Unless you have like a high end sports car or something. But
Mm.
most of them, there's plenty of cars out there that the same model and make and color that you want.
Yeah.
So wait and get the one that you want, not the one
Yeah.
somebody pressures you into getting.
Yeah. So whether it's even like, this move, I mean, we kind of let things play out and, we haven't seen any, issues, right? It's been 4 years since we've been talking about this. And then, spending a month out there, okay, things are still looking good. And so we're taking baby steps. We're still progressing. It might not be as fast as some people want to move, right? I think for some people, they want to move right away. And we've also seen that blow up where they want to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
They're
once
like, oh my gosh, what do we do?
But once you sell your place in California, it's really hard to come back because in the meantime, even if you're just gone a year, the price go up pretty significantly, right? Anyways, so we've learned from other people's mistakes of just being too quick and making those kind of decisions. And so we've just been taking baby steps, but we've been making progress, right? So now, hey, in a few months, we're moving from here to rent for a year.
For me, baby steps is a lot more doable. I can do it like in little chunks and get to the end where I want to be. And it doesn't cause so much anxiety and fear in me because I'm like, okay, I could do that little step today. And then before you know it, they add up. And it just like keeps stacking on top of each other. And then you're like, wow, we got a lot done.
Yeah. And because we've been processing this for a while, like we said, okay, we're going to rent for a year, which means what are we going to do with our place? We're going to rent it. And so we kind of weighed our options. We both knew, again, coming back to vision and making unified decisions, we both don't want to do Airbnb. We've had rental property before and we always like long-term rentals because we don't like the turnover. People are always, oh, you make a lot more money when you do Airbnb. And I said, yeah, but you got more headaches because I don't want
It's hard on the house.
I don't want to be a hotel keeper, because you're turning it over every few days. I'd just rather get them in and just let them stay and just collect the checks every month, right? Without having to worry about that. But we kind of found a sweet spot, because we're not going to do long-term rentals like we've done before. We're going to rent it out in kind of the mid-range rentals for traveling professionals. So traveling nurses, traveling professors. Yeah. And we're right between a major hospital, a mile and a half to the west of us, and Caltech, which is a mile and a half on the east of us. And then JPL is a few miles away from here. And then, of course, Kaiser's right here. So we're kind of right in the middle of a lot of opportunity that traveling professionals would want to stay. And so, we can command a higher rent than we could if it was a long-term lease, but we don't get the turnover like Airbnb. These are people that would be booking for at least a month. In fact, the organization or the website that we're going to be listing through, that is their minimum. You have to stay for at least a month. So it's not short-term rentals. So which is nice, but we can command a better rent. And so, we're looking at the rent we're going to be paying on a lakefront property in Lake Norman is basically half the price of what we're going to rent our place out for. So I'm looking at this thing going, man, where do we lose? Maybe this is what we'll do. I don't know. Maybe this is also.
Well, and I was thinking too, like if there's a time in between where it's not rented and we want to come back for a week, we could do that too if nobody's there.
Yeah, we can just, block it out. Like, probably, once, because you kind of know they're booking for a month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever. And we say, hey, if we want to come back at the end of that term, right, we block it out. So it's not available till at least a week after they move out. So anyways, all that say is, and then so when I was running the numbers, I was like, hey, if this works out, maybe this is set in stone, but just throwing the idea out because I don't know if I want to do this either, but maybe every year we just move to a different place that we like to live and try out.
I have to chuckle about that, honey.
Why?
That's moving.
I know, but this is different. This is different than childhood. Childhood was just moving. This is like, where do I want to live?
Yeah.
So this is totally different. But all that to say is that patience and how we've made this plan or this transition has allowed a lot more different opportunities and things to think about that are much more beneficial than if we would have just, like a lot of people, just sell our place and move, right? So now you don't have really much options. What we're doing with these baby steps, right, is creating a lot of options for us.
And we were trying to think outside of the box
Yeah.
too, come up and be creative of some things that maybe aren't the norm.
So the patience, right, as we kind of close up here, that patience is huge. It's actually allowed us to see a lot more opportunity than if we would have rushed into the process.
Mm.
And eventually, that patience allows you both to be at peace. Would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And then you're going to have fun no matter what you do. Well, yeah. So I think, how do you navigate life transitions, these big transitions? I hope you got something out of this.
Yeah.
Because this is what we've gone through, what we're going through now. And
Talk with your
hope this
spouse
helps.
what things you might need to do to diffuse things so that you feel more comfortable and can take those baby steps.
Yeah.
So you can work together on that.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you need? Like, much more time do you think about it? And just be patient, especially talking to the, A-type personality that just wants to move, right?
Mhm.
It's like, again, the A-type personality, or the D in the DISC profile, right? They're the shoot first, aim later, which can be good, but also can blow up in your face. So having that anchor, that the more, let's say, less risk tolerant, but really the one that's usually the person, the spouse, that is process driven and figures out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. So you definitely need her or him on board.
Because the one that's got to do how to make things work, that takes a lot of time to put all those puzzle pieces together.
And so, anyways, I hope this helps. Again, make sure you listen with your spouse on this episode, and please share this with another married entrepreneur that I'm sure needs to hear this, because in just about every marriage, and there might be exceptions out there, I'm sure there are, but one's a higher risk taker, one's not. And that creates conflict. So when it comes to navigating life transitions, major transitions, I hope you take these tips to heart. So, all right. God bless you, and talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.